And we are live. Hello, Ketan. Welcome to yet another episode of Factors.ai LinkedIn Live. We are very, very happy to have you here. All the folks here, Ketan is a seasoned marketer, specifically a B2B ABM marketer. So in this session, that's what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about ABM uh, at an overall level and specifically from his experience around running ABM around LinkedIn and also integrating it with the rest of the overall B2B marketing campaigns which is there. That's what we'll be talking about. So please keep the questions flowing as well. And more importantly, Ketan would go through all his experience across multiple sets of large B2B companies and also specific niche B2B companies to see how ABM works there. So that this would be a more kind of a well-rounded or like non-quintessential topic. It's not just the traditional SaaS ABM marketer. It's like a lot more enterprise SaaS or enterprise software services companies, which we talk about here. And for the audience who, just as a form of introduction, Shri here, I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Factors.ai. At Factors.ai, we solve for account intelligence, activation, and attribution. At a fundamental level, what we believe is like there are hundreds of signals which come in a B2B buyer journey. We capture that from first party, second party, and third party sources, assemble them, analyze them, score them, identify which are the companies which are most showing intent at different points of the funnel, and activate them across multiple channels. And most importantly, complete the feedback loop with attribution. That's what we solve for. You can check out Factors.ai over a free plan or a free trial at any point in time. But more importantly, back to the topic and the main person here. Welcome here, Ketan. Thanks a lot for taking time to talk to us. Uh, just as a form of introduction, if you can just take us through your journey of becoming a B2B marketer. It's not like a general traditional journey like a pilot or people aspire to, but how did you get into becoming a B2B marketer, especially an ABM marketer?
All right. Thank you, Shri, for inviting me, and thanks for the introduction and those kind words. I'm very excited to be here. And yeah, my journey has been, like you said, uh, it was not something which I ended up doing, right? It's not something planned. You kind of just ended up being a B2B marketer. As I started my career in pharma, and then I kind of pivoted towards marketing. I always say this, right? I was always passionate about marketing. I enjoyed marketing. It's something that came easily to me, and it's in my name too. I call myself marketing. So I think that by it was by default. I kind of got into marketing because I had to, help my mother run her business. And at a very
Yes.
very basic level, it was just to get our business running, and then I had to run the ropes of marketing. This was way back in, 2000s, early 2003, 4, something like that. And then I developed a more active interest there. I realized I loved doing what I'm doing. I loved, of course, I was very raw that time. I didn't have a MBA background at that stage, but then I kind of realized this is what I want to do because I enjoyed doing it. And then I kind of pivoted towards, and pharma became like just education. Like, I mean, these days every second person who's doing engineering is doing something else. So it's now a fashion. But those days it was not a fashion. It was something which I didn't want to do. So then I worked a couple of years in the pharma and real estate industry, and then in 2006 I kind of pivoted. That was my first major transition into core marketing, was with
Just
Google.
as a disclosure, I also started in FMCG sales with Dabur India Limited. So
Yeah,
that's
everybody has a background story. We always start somewhere and end up somewhere. That's a common thing. But yeah, I started my main pivot towards everything SaaS, digital marketing, tech company. Everything was with Google in 2006. I was one of the first few hires in India, and
wow.
that was really the at that time Google was a startup properly. Now it's of
I
course a
think
large
it was,
behemoth.
yes,
Yeah.
wasn't it early 2006, etc., which was one
Yes.
of the
Yes.
first times Google set up the office in India and then started the thing?
They set up the office in Hyderabad, and I would say that that was at that time probably the most exciting startup to join. So I would say that was my master's and PhD in marketing. That those 2.5 years that I spent there. So I was part of the Google Ads team, one of the first few certified Google Ads professionals who work collaborated with a lot of products there. And then I was also collaborated closely with the AdSense team, YouTube team, and that was really where I was able to pivot completely towards marketing and digital in general. And then post that I joined SaaS, then that was my first pivot towards SaaS. I worked for a company called MagnaQuest Technologies in Hyderabad, where I was heading the. We had launched an email marketing product very early. We were competing with iContact and Mailchimp and Constant Contact very early in 2010, and then we kind of built that around an agency model. Then worked for IBM for a year and a half. I was heading the Tivoli brand
Yeah.
there, and then post that I worked for a lot of SaaS companies, mostly enterprise SaaS companies, as a marketing leader, and mostly all kinds of sectors, right from cybersecurity to sales, automation, AI. So yeah, that's been a journey. And currently,
Yeah.
I work for a company called Fielda, where I'm the CMO, taking
Yeah.
care of product growth and sales as well. So yeah, it's been a interesting journey from pharma to
Pharma
where.
sales to all the way. No, but in a sense, you have been one of the most complete ground up marketers which we have seen, because generally we look at marketers in two different ways. Of course, people do have a general sales background, especially let's say from a 15 18-year vintage, which is that they come with an MBA. They generally start with a brand marketing or a positioning product marketing roles, and then they become CMOs.
Yes.
But you are very unique in the sense, like, you have been in the early years of Google search, paid search setup. It's like the whole rush of experience, understanding paid search, or being one of the early pioneers of running paid search, and
Yeah.
then made your way up into multiple levels, all the way up to a CMO from on a B2B marketing across multiple industries, right from Abiso to cybersecurity to very large companies like IBM, and now at Fielda as well. So I think, in one sense, I'm very happy and intrigued to actually start learning more with you, because it's like, since you have a wide variety of experience, you can talk about the whole scope of marketing across multiple things.
Yeah.
So let's get into the setup of this thing. How do you approach account-based marketing specifically? Because fundamentally, any B2B marketing fundamentally goes at an account-based level. Enterprise marketing don't sell to users or individuals at a present. We're not selling consumer goods here. How do you approach account-based marketing? How do you look at going at account-based marketing? Let's say for any B2B marketing leaders or even professionals who are just starting up in their career, how do they start looking at approaching account-based marketing? If you can just lay it down for us, then we can go deeper into the more operational details as well.
Great. So I say this, especially if you're in B2B marketing and you're doing mid-market to enterprise SaaS, not much as
Mhm.
consumer SaaS. Earlier, you needed an MBA in marketing, but now you don't need an MBA. You turn it around, flip it around, it's ABM. So I say
Mhm.
that earlier you needed an MBA, now you need to be an ABM marketer. So that's see, ABM has been there for a long time, right? I know it's kind of a buzzword, and marketers
Yeah.
are famous for buzzwords, right? Every time there's a new buzzword that's coming in, but ABM has been there. The framework of ABM has been there. The process has been there for a long time.
Mhm.
It was mainly sales driven, right?
Mhm.
Large enterprises used to basically, it is targeting large accounts, enterprise accounts which are going to give you the most revenue for that particular year, which is responsible for driving most of your revenue and growth. And that requires a more strategic approach driven by sales. And account-based sales engagement was the buzzword, or account-based sales was, and that has been there for a lot of companies like HP, Oracle, like a lot of the IT companies, a lot of the automobile companies used to do that. But what has changed the game in the last 4 5 years dramatically is technology. I think with technology coming in, SaaS coming in, I think what the game has completely changed, and the way we are delivering ABM at scale. Although it says account-based marketing, I think
Mhm.
that it's basically account-based process in itself. It's account-based sales plus marketing plus customer success. A lot of teams, it's basically a tag team. It's a complete team that's executing it. Although the name is marketing, so technology has really changed the game for ABM in the last few years. With all kinds of tools which have. And I think it's made ABM more accessible, more measurable, and it's democratized it a lot more than it was earlier. ABM seemed to be a very high budget, high ticket, high
Or
large
like
enterprise.
more like Fortune 200 or Fortune 2000 kind
Fortune
of
200.
companies are the ones
Yes.
who used to do ABM. Now it's actually gone beyond.
Now it's gone. Yes, exactly. You're right. So that's it's made it more democratized, it's more accessible to a lot more smaller companies
Mhm.
to really do ABM ground up. And I think the last year or so, I think it's becoming much more easier for smaller companies to really approach ABM with the same focus that large enterprise would do. But the key is really when you're targeting large accounts, larger sales cycles, larger ACVs, account annual contract value. If you're targeting those companies, I think ABM is really a de facto process to use. That's what it is.
Got it. So let's take last two experiences of yours. One is Aviso, which is in a super competitive structure. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
there is Zoom, there is
Correct.
Gong, which is kind of a
Sure.
big gorilla, and also a big gorilla in terms of marketing. They do have an excellent marketing concept. And now we have Fielder, which is also in a niche sector within
Hyper niche.
hyper niche sector which is there. If you can take us through how you approached account based marketing in both these companies, because startup Aviso is like kind of like it's not so niche. It's actually all sales tech.
Yes.
Everyone is going after, especially after COVID, on conversational intelligence, which is there. And field being very niche, also it also requires a totally different the same. How you
Mhm.
went about marketing, right? ABM marketing, right from building lists. How do you operationalize your ABM, including tech stack? If you can take us through, then we can. It'll be great for us to learn.
Great. So I would like to go a little beyond also because I've been
Mhm.
running ABM for 8 years. Multiple models of it. Of course, the last 3 years has been more mature. But
Mhm.
I think that overall, if I have to combine, of course, it really depends, varies from company to company, the market, the product, the team you have, then the resources at your disposal, the budget. So it's not like a one size fits all, but I'll try and make it very simple of what the overall approach is. Mean, see, as far as ABM is concerned, the you need to understand that ABM is a strategy. It's also a process in itself, right? It's really the main key thing with ABM is really how you select the right accounts. I think
Mhm.
that is a very very critical first step in ABM because it is, and also the second fundamental thing is it's not dependent on a tool. ABM
Mhm.
generally, when I see young marketers or people who are embracing ABM, starting out with ABM, they think it's a tool thing, right? A tool can execute that, but it's
Mhm.
beyond that. Also, of course, the tool multiplies the effect of what ABM can do. But the two
Mhm.
fundamental things are that, three more fundamental things are that it should be, it is the right accounts to select is itself a big process because that takes a lot of time, and I'll talk
Mhm.
about a framework of how we select those accounts as well.
Mhm.
It's something which I've kind of modeled and remodeled and kind of optimized over the different companies I've worked for. The second is you need to have sales buy-in, right? It says account and marketing. I'm coming to that again, but it's really about helping sales because enterprise marketing or enterprise, when you're selling to enterprises, large enterprises, it's mostly sales driven, and marketing
Mhm.
plays a very very key supporting, not supporting role, but a key role throughout the play that is there, but it is mostly driven by sales, with marketing playing the role of an orchestrator, like a conductor for an orchestra. I think that's marketing's key role there. And the third is you need to have your plans built outside of a tool, right? For example, I know people build all their plans in one set of tools, and then it goes away. So your
For
Excel is still
some reason, let's say, yeah, budget or something. If they have to cut the tool, then the whole plans goes off. Like let's say,
yes.
quick and
And
simple.
I've seen that in some of the previous years. One tool, you migrate from one tool to the other data and you lose it. So that Excel or whatever, which where you're selecting the accounts is very important. So the first step is when I say select an accounts, if that is the step that is taken care of, I think the rest becomes a lot easier. Now, how do we select accounts? Now, it varies from, sales just dumping a set of accounts to you, saying that,
Mhm.
you want to target these accounts, which is a wish list of accounts. That is, I think most companies do the same in large extent, but in mature organizations, and initially when I started out, it was the same. So sales said, hey, these are my 50 accounts. Let's do some ABM for them. Let's do some ABM for them, and then let's see if we can close those accounts. Some ABM, that is the buzzword there. But
So
obviously,
sales
there's some
looks like looks at ABM as something like which will help them close the deals or help them get leads or something of that sort. But
yeah.
even in that, is it something like do you kind of like have a process of like
Yes.
it can't be any list of account, right? For example, if you go after Aviso, if you want to do all companies which would want to do conversational intelligence, that's virtually every single company in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you
See,
actually narrow down into the set of accounts which you want to go after?
yeah, I think for sales, ABM is account-based magic. That's how tickling. So, anyways, but yeah, there is
Good.
what we
I'll
do
actually
is
take that. I'll actually take that to use it somewhere else. Thanks for that, Ketan. Account-based math.
yeah, that is what sales thinks. Some magic will run, and suddenly the accounts are talking to us. But anyways, there's a lot of bad work that goes on behind the scenes. So see, what we do is what I have developed is the best. We have certain scores for selecting accounts, right? For example, the basic is selecting accounts is firmographic data, right? Whatever tool you use, I'm not going with Zoom Info, you could use LinkedIn Sales, whatever, Apollo, Lusha, doesn't matter. So you have firmographic criteria, revenue, employee, technology. So that is really where the titles, roles that you want to target. So that firmographic and demographic data is that's at that level itself. A lot of people say that okay, that is my account list, but we go a little beyond. We also look at certain other things. So what we do is I have a parameter of around a score of 100 where we have a certain percentage for each of these. So firmographic data, for example, is 30% of the overall score. The second score comes from behavioral data. If an
Mhm.
account is engaged on my website following and that behavioral data, we add a certain set of scores to that. For example, on 25, it depends from company to company, but that is a score. Then the third is around referrals, right? If there is sales referral, if sales has feedback, if sales knows that account, then we add certain other criteria to it. Another criteria that we sometimes add is, for example, it could be let's say that we have scoops, right, for discover, or we have scoops or cluster of accounts, certain criteria that we have. Then we also have familiarity with the account. And then if the account is a referral coming from a partner, we have certain scores. So what I'm saying is this: we have criteria like this that adds up to 100, right? We have certain accounts, and then we have map it down to two or three tiers, right? Tier one is the score reaching close to 100 is where we assign this is a tier 1 account, which means it's highly engaged, it's highly targeted, it has a strong reference within the account, it has got technological relevance, and of course we have some scoops and intent based data coming in as well. So all these add up to that score, and that's what we look at each account and build our profile of companies. It could be, tier one has 10 account. Tier one is very small. So these are accounts that close in that quarter. That is where quarter or the next 6 months, depends on sales cycle. And then there's a tier two set of accounts where, we add accounts which, 30 or 40, which we need to warm up and kind of get them in the pipeline the next. So we put them into these buckets. And then there's a tier three, which is basically what you call bolt-on ABM, which is more awareness ABM. We need to get them, and then it takes some time for them. So we kind of put them into these clusters, and then based on that, our plays vary, right? So that is the fundamental thing about how we select the accounts. And of course, tools play a big part, and I think there's a whole bunch that you know, but a lot of it is through, I think that feedback from sales on the ground, feedback from partners plays a very key role. I think that sometimes people ignore. I think we just go with firmographic data and then we say, okay, we've got the
Yeah.
list, and that. So that's that in essence is really, if you do this work, I mean, you'll be surprised the kind of work that goes into this, the research and the kind of discussions that go. Once we have nailed this right, I think the rest of the ABM, that personalization, which I'll come to later, will become a little more easy. Of course, there are challenges there, but really, this is the first biggest and the most important step in ABM.
In essence, making the account list right
Yes,
along with
yes,
sales team and make sure that it's not just top of the funnel, just like firmographic, demographic, or
yes.
other technographic data, but also more importantly, is it the right fit account? Is it multiple
Right
other
fit.
scores? Why this
What we call
account?
in-market accounts. In-market accounts come a little later, but really it's about ensuring that all the criteria are satisfied and we are trying to target. It's also important that we have some contacts in the company. What I've seen in the ABM account is if there's some contact from within your company, if there's some second or first or second level of connection, that makes a little bit of a difference rather than just going cold to an account, relying just on technical data. Yeah.
It's actually a very good point. It's like ABM is not about just going after cold accounts or even this thing, but having even list of accounts where there is some level of warming up and then marketing to them over a period of time to get this thing. This is the
Yeah.
account list.
Yeah.
Next comes is like ads specifically.
Yeah.
And even in that is like, of course, now B2B marketing, one of the largest B2B marketing networks, which is there, is LinkedIn. And LinkedIn ads kind of becomes default in part of your overall ABM strategy in this thing.
Yeah.
So you have the list of accounts. How do you start running ads in the first place? How do you start looking at activating these accounts in multiple channels, which is there? And specifically around like, how do you look at it from a LinkedIn ad strategy as well? If you can just come on from your experience, both across multiple companies on this regard.
Sure. So yes, LinkedIn is the de facto channel for B2B advertising or marketing. I mean, it's a given, right? So we also use LinkedIn for a lot of our account research. Our LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example, is just brilliant. We use a whole set of tools. So even in this research of finalizing the set of accounts, we go through LinkedIn Sales Navigator also. Now, once this accounts list is set up, I think what we need, for example, see, it's in LinkedIn, the most important aspect of LinkedIn's advertising is the targeting. I mean, no tool offers, no channel offers you the kind of granular targeting that LinkedIn offers for B2B. But it's not just about the targeting, right? What I've seen is that a certain set of accounts or contacts, if it's targeted, but they need to be active on LinkedIn. That's the very fundamental thing. You need to be very active and engaged on LinkedIn, because frequently, what you'd be surprised that you see all the roles and titles that you want. You're just blown away with the kind of targeting and the kind of contacts that you get, but you'll notice that 30, 40, 60% of them are not engaged on LinkedIn. So what we do in LinkedIn Sales Navigator is we look very closely at the buyer intent also. Are they following you? Are
Mm.
they visiting your profile, right? Have they been active on LinkedIn? So of late, right, which we didn't do earlier, is in the recent past, is we have been trying to look at those criteria also. I mean, if they've been active on LinkedIn, that is even stronger criteria for me, because I know they are engaged, right? What is the point of targeting, but somebody is not even come on LinkedIn for 3 months? So that is a very fundamental thing about, we are trying to
A
use
very
LinkedIn.
important point, especially when you run SaaS to SaaS, you don't really worry about it because most SaaS marketers or SaaS professionals are there in this thing. But as you expand your targeting across multiple industries, even if you, let's say, LinkedIn will give so many accounts and so many titles, but only a certain percentage of them are there, and then narrowing that for that, and then getting it back to the account scoring, focusing on only accounts which are active on LinkedIn to run LinkedIn ads too, is a very good kind of nuance which gets missed out in any
Yeah.
LinkedIn ad strategy, which is there.
Bang on, Shri. Because see, that's when your target. That depends on enterprise. See, SaaS, fintech, and companies which are active on LinkedIn with or agencies, that's a different ballgame. But if you're targeting manufacturing, supply chain, some of these larger, and that's where ABM really is more effective. You need to be very sure that those contacts that you have list are active. So have a separate list for actively engaged within your targeting, and you will see the response. And I've personally seen how better the response is with those ads rather than just. So that's one thing. The second thing that we do very closely on LinkedIn is we kind of, while setting up the ads, as far as ABM is concerned, see, CEOs and VPs and decision maker level, everybody wants to target them. Every company on earth wants to target them, and that is a de facto because they have the buyer influence, they have the authority and all. But what I've seen is that we need to go deeper into the account, right? We need to kind of target a larger pool. That's what ABM is basically, right? You need to go deeper into those accounts. Not just, maybe they may not have the decision to buy, for example, a manager. A manager may not have the authority to influence a decision. Maybe he or she has. But if you go deeper, because see, the key thing is you need to get your message in front of them, right? And that is really where the rubber meets the road. For example, if the second before you get there, you really need to get your messaging in place. For example, now that you've identified a set of accounts, you need to look at the pain points that you're targeting. So a set of account lists, I think you create an ad for a set of account lists. It could be use case based, it could be title based, it could be geography based, it could be whatever criteria, but generally role based, what I've seen has seen better success. So we generally set up ads by roles. So if it's managers, directors, we
Nice.
clearly have use cases. You're right. We set up a set of ads for that, and that's in B2B works better because you're talking to them directly. I think that works, right? You talk to director level, and that is their challenge. You talk about certain, use director in we have a case study where a director was able to, get benefit or try some tangible benefits of using our software. So that has seen better results. And I think we kind of arrange those ads that way. Of course, there are multiple ways you can do that. You can do it by industry also. That's a different thing. But generally, tailored message for a tailored set of ICP profile, I think has worked a little bit better. And the third thing really is about the kind of ad type that you want to use, right? Now, one more thing I want to add here is that retargeting is one area which has worked good for us on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's retargeting feature is really good. I think I think that once we retarget our website visitors and use that feature extensively, and the last aspect is really about the type that you use. I think video is,
Ad
what
formats.
static ads don't do that well. Videos do extremely well. I think LinkedIn is kind of now betting a lot on video. You're already seeing a lot of UGC content on LinkedIn as well. Video and some carousels, add with a story in a carousel has worked better. Single image is just not working. Even set of ad, I think you need to tell a story in that, and that's what is working. So I think that in a nutshell is what it is. The right target. Select the right kind of how you set the campaign, and then and there are smaller things also, Sri, like you mentioned earlier when we were talking, you mentioned about capping, right? That
Yeah.
that is a very, Google allows that into great extent. Now the LinkedIn's feature, right? You only see 25 set of accounts. You need to look at other tools to see whole set of accounts. So we could see, if you could see the entire set of accounts which are engaging with LinkedIn, we need to look at some other tools there. So LinkedIn's Sales Navigator is an awesome tool, but the restrictions in some of the campaign features that we have, and that's where other tools help us in getting the complete flavor, understanding data, and slicing our data and really optimizing our campaigns better.
That's good. Actually, I was actually taking notes, and this is something which doesn't come out generally. Like, for example, like personalizing at a title level, running campaigns for whether it's a ebook campaign or a video campaign for people of certain title across an account. For example, how you would want to influence a director versus the, let's say, manager versus someone who's a CXO, which is there, and running specific campaigns around that is something which gets missed out across the board. And more importantly, the nuances, what you explained around ad formats, single image ads or text ads. Sometimes people tend to choose the cheaper way where like they want to run lot of impressions for a very cheap rate. They try to use a text ads and other this thing. But on the other hand, better storytelling happens with a video or a carousel ad, which is actually more costlier as well. And it also takes time to prepare. Running a
Yes.
proper storytelling carousel ad or a video ad takes a lot more time. But if you
Yes.
get your target account interested or engaged with those ads, then the outcome is far better. And that's some point which actually gets missed out in multiple points. And the last thing which you mentioned is the measurement within LinkedIn. Uh, People don't actually click on LinkedIn ads. That's something which we see in multiple places. We also talk about it in so many places. Like LinkedIn, people see it like a billboard. You see a billboard, you don't immediately buy from the billboard. Later, you come back. But LinkedIn doesn't offer the measurement of like which companies view your LinkedIn ads later come back, unless and otherwise you are a marketing partner. Something that's where
Yeah.
something like factors.a comes into place, where we can see who has seen your LinkedIn ads later come back to your website organically.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the same. One last point which you mentioned, which was pretty intriguing, was like capping part.
Hmm.
Frequency capping or like showing a certain account or a certain title only so many ads is something which exists both in Facebook and in Google search. And you are an early pioneer in Google search as well. This is
Yeah.
something which doesn't exist in LinkedIn. Have you seen any issues because of that? That is like, why is capping even a problem, or like is ad distribution even a problem on LinkedIn? Have you come across, or how you have seen in your experience?
Yes, I think because see, Google has very good frequency capping. Because I've done extensively Google in my initial part of my career. They have so the thing with this, when I see frequency capping, this is what I want. I want to put limit to how many times a company can see my ad. What happens with LinkedIn is, see, a larger enterprise, say you have targeting 5,000, so you have a account list, right? You want to target all 1 to 2,200 employee size, but you don't always get the reach. You know that with any ad platform you need to get sufficient reach, which is given by the channel or LinkedIn or Meta, and then because you need that much amount of minimum reach for the campaigns to be effective. So sometimes what you do is you end up doing is you add a slightly larger company, because then you have larger volume to play with. But what happens in that case is, what we have seen is that if you mix the companies a little bit here, the frequency, the ad is shown to the larger company more, although that's not our target market. So that is where we have seen a lot of challenges. So when you're building an account list, I think we always try and sometimes separate by employee size a little bit more, and that is where we frequently, because I don't want, and because the reach is larger, the ad is shown to that account. And also what happens is also scheduling. There's a challenge with the scheduling sometimes, because what I've seen is that it shows the ads very frequently at early time, right? Maybe very early in the day, and then the rest of the day probably it's just so there's very difficult to measure that, unlike Google or Meta, which does a good better job at that. So that is one big challenge. Of course, there are other tools, like you said, which can plug into that data and then you can view, but LinkedIn natively does not offer that. And of course, like Factors does a good job with the data and demographic breakdowns of view segments and all. So that is something which LinkedIn's core uh, ad manager does, campaign manager does not offer at that level. But certainly, there are challenges, but in terms of targeting and in terms of just the way you can set up the campaigns, nothing can beat. And I'm falling in love with Sales Navigator these days, because I'm using it a lot more. It's just amazing tool. I mean, the kind of literacy you can, I mean, sometimes I feel you don't even need zoom info or some of these other big tools. They will not
Actually, yes.
like me.
Actually, you made a
Use
very
Zoom
good.
Info. They will probably not like what I said. Of course, that's a very good tool. I'm just kidding. They have their own space, but
No, this
if
is
you're not using Sales Navigator, it's you're not leveraging LinkedIn enough.
no, this is actually a very, very good point. LinkedIn as a product, how they have actually built, they started as a social network and they are building tools
Yeah,
for sales and B2B and ABM professionals in terms of whether they have Sales Navigator and they have few other tools around the campaign management and other this thing. But specifically the Sales Navigator, the direction in which it's going. And as you mentioned, if they also start providing a dialer, they provide a kind of a caller facility or even a call recording facility, and more importantly, insights on who to call, who not to call within the company, the value of their phone numbers, etc. If they have a credit-based system, in essence, they can actually go after multiple companies in a whole sales tech industry, right from the likes of Gong to Outreach and even Zoom Info and others, which is there. And it's like multi-billion dollar companies. It's about them to actually actively go at it. But that's in a future trend perspective, we can actually expect LinkedIn to actually become a kind of integrated tool where across the board, multiple companies at an individual level needn't use, let's say, a sales intelligence tool like a Zoom Info and a dialer tool and even something like outreach or email tool, etc. Because all of them come under the LinkedIn email and LinkedIn messaging and LinkedIn calling facility, which can be that, which can be maybe something which LinkedIn is also working at. But as a future trend, it's actually nice to think of it on those lines. Just that.
I don't even know if that. I mean, if that is going to be effective. But see, LinkedIn, you see, started as business networking, right? Then it became a job hunting tool for recruiters with it. Now it's become like a sales tool, right? People, you see a lot of people selling on LinkedIn actively. There are as many sellers. I don't know how many buyers are there, but it's becoming a top tool for selling to B2B. So it's evolved. I don't know. I see where you're coming from. I know that LinkedIn has so much data that it can really can disrupt this entire model. But I don't know how LinkedIn's users would feel that way. But that is something which whether LinkedIn, like it happened with X, right? Twitter. Uh, Twitter was something else, and then with Elon Musk and X, what is happening? A lot of people, some people like it, some don't. So I don't know how that will pan out. But yeah, that could be a logical end to what you're saying. But I don't know how the positioning of LinkedIn and how people perceive it would really remain the same. I don't know about that.
Possibly, and it can also evolve. So maybe they are also waiting for the market to evolve. For
Yeah,
example, earlier with email marketing tools evolving, there was huge amount of spam. Now there is a very, very clear kind of like we can't outreach itself is putting limits to not sending more than 50 emails, which is there. And even with calls and power dialers and etc., there are so many lot of spam calls as well which are coming in, which is there. Eventually that is also can get moderated and other this thing, and LinkedIn might wait for a time when things are moderated and then enable this facility in a moderated control method, so
yeah,
that it also comes across with a trust rather than comes across as a cold call or a
yeah.
cold this thing. But that is something more for the future to see, like how the ABM trend as such goes through, etc. We have got some questions coming in. I have one or two last two questions, but I think it will be better for us to answer the questions as well before we actually listen. So one
Okay.
question is from Prashant. He's talking about, as you said, ABM is mostly effective in engineering and manufacturing, given that your own experience with Fielder and others. However, in these domains, most ICP profiles are not active on LinkedIn. How do you overcome this?
Good question. I think that's a question which we have been trying to grapple for a long time, in especially my last few stints. So the answer to that is now, firstly, you're looking at LinkedIn. You need to look at LinkedIn as a channel, right? ABM is a strategy in itself and a process, and LinkedIn is one of those, maybe the most important or maybe the only channel. In this case, you've got to look at it holistically, right? You've got to look at where your prospects are, right? I know that a lot of prospects are on have an account on LinkedIn but may not be active. In that case, I think what has worked is really your partner networks, partner ecosystems. You need to really fish, look at other channels as much, right? You've got to look at Meta also. I think one reason I look at Meta also is because the groups that are there on Meta, they specifically are topics of interest, is something which we have been trying in Fielda also. That could be an interesting thing. You need to look at dark social, right? A lot of communication and collaboration happens on your Slacks and Telegrams, WhatsApps. That is where a lot of your prospects lie on, right? So you look at partners, you look at other channels, you look at other events. So you've got to probably go beyond and then look at LinkedIn as maybe a targeting option. You cannot, whatever the challenge happens is you think that, okay, I will only look at LinkedIn. And if they're not on LinkedIn, you say that is not affecting working for me. So you've got to look at, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. I think that's where you need to see where your prospects are. Now, engineering is broad and manufacturing is also broad. So we target both these segments. Now, Filter targets engineering, construction industries. What I've seen is that construction infrastructure is a little active. Logistics, not much. Heavy engineering, not at all on LinkedIn. It's a challenge. Utilities, for example, is not much on LinkedIn. So there are certain you can't take that all entire engineering is not there. You've got to look at which of these segments, micro segments are there on LinkedIn and see it accordingly. So like I said also earlier, right, look at the active, who is more active. So that's one way to see when did they last post, when did they last respond, follow. That will tell you how active your segment is. That will give you the idea of how you can target them. But you look beyond it also. Look at other channels, look at local channels, and then that will you'll come at and use LinkedIn more as a content marketing tool or more as a branding tool, if not as completely as a lead generation tool.
That's interesting. One more thing, which is something which you also mentioned, is like, of course, LinkedIn has also evolved over a period of time. Over the last 4 years, especially after COVID, LinkedIn is now more than 1 billion users, maybe touching close to
It's
1.1 billion.
ballooned like anything. It's ballooned like
That's like,
anything.
to look at even working professional B2B population, which is there, it's almost like 35 to 40% of the working B2B professional.
Yes.
More
Yes.
and more CEOs, for example, if you see the Zoom Info CEO, Henry himself is kind of very active on LinkedIn. He
Yes.
posts regularly. Almost every other B2B CEO has started posting on LinkedIn. They're also there as a professional network. It's very different from Instagram or Twitter. It's not a rage network. This is more like, I want to share professional insights. I want to share industry insights. I want to share knowledge, or I want to brand myself better. So that as a trend is also growing, in a sense, like people are adopting to LinkedIn more and more. So as we speak, while certain industries might have lower LinkedIn this thing, it can also is also something which is continuously evolving, where like
Yes.
more and more industries, across industries, more and more decision makers are coming on top of an LinkedIn. As it happens, it would make more and more sense, or obvious sense. We can't just rely on the previous mentality, like mostly it's marketers and recruiters and only software and technology industry. As we see, it's heavy engineering and other engineering firms are also coming on LinkedIn and finding a way to target them with the right kind of ads, which is where a certain kind of, let's say, marketers would be maybe available to even to see with a single image ads or quirky copy text, etc. But professionals across other industries might want to view a video ad, or might want to see a more professionally done ad, etc., for them to get attracted. Just like how you target them across business magazines. For example, certain CXOs, you want to target them on Economist or Fortune 100, etc., and then you want to build around that and see that, which is there. One last question, which is also before we go into some more audience questions as well, is like, what do you do when? How does LinkedIn integrate with rest of your ABM? LinkedIn is one part of your ABM. It's not your complete ABM. It's a tool, and
Yeah.
it's a channel which is there. Let's say in
Yeah.
some cases LinkedIn wouldn't make sense, or LinkedIn is not the right place, or you don't find the audience. How do you do ABM? What are the other channels which you tap into? What are the other methods which you tap into?
Good question. Like LinkedIn is a means to an end, not an end in itself, as far as ABM is concerned. So what we do is one thing with LinkedIn. What I'm seeing over the last 2 3 years is, I think personal profiles are doing much better. I think the company page has become more like a broadcast PR notification where you talk about updates. Earlier, when you think of LinkedIn, it was company pages. So individual profiles, individual LinkedIn profiles become your main. So if you're a SaaS CMO or CEO, you have to build your personal brand. LinkedIn is organic. LinkedIn, what you do is very important. What you call founder-led growth, right? That has become very evident. But what I've seen is people talk about employee advocacy, right? So organically using LinkedIn, of course, it's a little tough to do. Not everybody will be active. Not everybody wants to be on LinkedIn. There's challenges. People are scared to come. Content challenges. But I think that is one. area that we leverage. Even though if we don't do ads, certainly LinkedIn becomes our personal profiles becomes our because people respond, people see our content. So that has become a very very important channel, in our aura, because talking about our POV to the market has become very very critical. And I think I've increasingly struggled internally to get teams aligned there. Nothing like 50 people talking about your brand to their extended networks. Look at the viral effect of that. I think that's on theory it is very good, but that's something which we leverage. Apart from that, the other channels, of course, we use outbound emails communication a lot. Of course, we use a lot of use HubSpot, use um, Mailchimp a lot, but we use a lot of these outbound tools like Clay, and integrate a lot of. So it's all about the right data and the right personalization. That email is still very effective if done very well. And then we also do a lot of. We've been experimenting with partner programs. So we have something called as Customer Advisory Board, a CAB, where we have subject matter experts or influencers. In our industry, influencers are SMEs basically. So we get these people on board, talk about our product, talk about use cases, talk about. And nothing like. And these SMEs are basically people with 20 years experience in the electric utility industry, for example, and their word matters. So influencer marketing or CAB has helped us get a lot of that. But LinkedIn continues to be important because we don't rely on LinkedIn DMs, if done well, I've seen better success than emails, because emails are
Wow.
always going to be challenged with inbox, with Gmail changing things,
Spam and Gmail
spam,
Outlook rules,
all that.
etc.
So LinkedIn DM, if done well, right, is a very big source. I feel, but it's also getting cluttered a little. People are using it a lot more, but I still think that it's a very good tool that if you can use, and also integrating it with uh, messaging platforms like WhatsApp and Telegram. I think that is one channel that has seen a lot of, especially if you're engaging with prospects after an event, and also event-based marketing that has worked. So again, like I said, it varies from company to company. It varies in multiple ways, but content, personal branding, and partner-related influencer marketing, that is something which has we've seen a lot of success with. And in fact, we still leverage LinkedIn to find those influencers, the CAB. All the influencers we have found are from LinkedIn itself, right? So I'll tell you an interesting story. We were going after a person. I wouldn't name the person or the company, but this was a very very well known expert in the oil and gas industry. That's a very
Wow.
very hyper niche, very very close, different industry, lot of tough industry to get into. This was a man who worked 25 years, senior guy, and had a LinkedIn profile, not very active. Like I said, we couldn't rely on ads to target him. So we picked his profile, we went through Zoom Info, and then we kind of reached out to him personally and invited him to the CAB. So that's where we were able to. So we didn't reach out on LinkedIn, but we use that data. So that's one thing, right? The data on LinkedIn. And very rarely we find somebody not on LinkedIn, very honestly. I've never seen. There may be a profile posted few years back, but we know that person is there. So that way LinkedIn is always there as a reference, as a research tool, as name it, it's always there. But we leverage it the way we want to.
It's actually very good insights where like it's not just ads on LinkedIn. You can also message, you can DM, you can see
Yes.
who's there, what's their profile, what's their background. Use that for better outbound email communication.
Yes.
And also the alternate strategies in broad-based ABM where you look at it as not just as an ad and conversion, but more importantly as a customer advisory board or other parts. And lastly, what you made sense makes a lot of sense for us also because we as founders are very heavily invested in LinkedIn social as well. It's like as
Yes.
a company talking or
Talking.
multiple members of the company talking about the product and the use cases openly around in LinkedIn and multiple other channels also expands the virality of the whole product and brand recognition.
So I
That's
can mention two companies who have done very good this game. I mean, Lemlist, if you know Lemlist,
yes.
Taplio. These are two companies that just relied on LinkedIn organic and the voice of advocacy, employee advocacy. All these what I just mentioned, they have nailed the game there, and they're. I mean, they have not even gone too much into marketing. I don't know if they've spent too many ads, but they've just exponentially grown just doing what I just told you. So there are a lot of companies leveraging that. Difficult for an oil and gas company to do it, but I know people, founders now increasingly are aware of LinkedIn. That's a good thing. I think in the next 2 years, you'll see a lot of CEOs, a lot of founders from legacy companies, from the old school people who are a little more old school, who may have come from the offline world, but they will now leverage, and a lot of them are coming to LinkedIn. I think that's a good sign.
That's right. That's great. And we do have quite a few questions. So one is Dwarka Reddy.
Okay.
He is asking like, what is the right tech for ABM? So it's the same.
Okay. Well, if you could answer
Our
that
loaded
question.
content, right?
But well, it's a see. It depend. The tech depends really on your budget. See that before the tech, you need to look at your team, your market. You need to look at your PMF, your product market, your audience. What is your team's expertise? How big is the team? And then, of course, last but not the least, how much budget you have. So all these will decide what the right tech for ABM is. But see, at a very, give you two examples. One at a very startup, very basic level, what tools you would need, and then at a slightly advanced enterprise level, it can go beyond. So if you're a startup, or if you are, let's say, not a startup, but maybe a angel-backed startup, or maybe a 1 to 10 million stage startup or a tech startup, and you don't have very high budgets, right? You're just trying to tap into the market. So I think in that case, it's the category of tools that's important. The first category you need is data insights. A tool like Factors AI, for example, it's amazing with the data you get. You need that account intelligence, if I can call it that category. Ensure that you have the right account intelligence tool. Which could it be? It could be at a very high level. It could be from Zoom Info or Demand Base at a very high level, to even tools like Apollo, or there are a lot of other tools that are there. I don't want to recommend any tool, but you could. But account intelligence tool is at the very basic what you need to research and find the right accounts. The second category of tools is you need a very strong sales engagement platform. It's very important. Is it could be around outreach to Limlist, or it could be Clay, whatever tool you want to use. Uh, there are a lot of tools out there, MailChimp to HubSpot, but you need a good sales engagement tool which gives you end-to-end ability to personalize emails, ability to have workflows and sequences, ability to call as well, record calls and well, all of these things. So it could be like a tool like Gong at a very basic level, but it could be outreach or anything. So you need a sales engagement platform. It could be one or three set of tools which do all these things, or one tool which integrates all of these, but you need a very strong sales outbound engagement, which is because outbound engagement is very important for ABM. The third category of tool that you would need is the ad tool. Now ad tools you might think is very expensive, but there are a lot of tools that currently are able to do that at level. So it could be an ad to LinkedIn ads, for example, LinkedIn ad platform. So LinkedIn ads itself is, think of it as your ABM execution tool, or you can go with Rollworks or any of those ABM tools that is there. So that is a third category which is doing it. And the fourth category is really content, right? Creating, personalizing content, landing pages, some tool like Outgrow, for example, or at a very basic level, you have Triblio, or you have more advanced tools like Terminus, for example. So there are all sorts of tools, but the key thing here is personalizing content for ABM, right? Creating landing pages, personalizing ads, personalizing your content, white papers and all. Basically, that is what how you can personalize and create great content using for ABM. So these are the four broad categories of tools that you need. So that is more important. And the right tech you need to research. Like I said, you know, I may have my, I don't want to be biased. That is, those are the tools that I have used extensively. You may use a supply, Sri may have a certain set of other tools, but I think the category is very important. And so these are the three or four broad categories that you would need to execute ABM at any scale, for example.
Got it. That's great. Actually, this was a very detailed explanation in terms of across the board, right? From not just ad tools, but even copies, even designs and landing pages, etc. And then we have also Kiran talking about like what is the ideal timeline for activating a target on LinkedIn.
Ideal timeline for activating a target on LinkedIn. I'm assuming, I'm just trying to understand. So what I get from this question is, I'm assuming that you're trying to warm up an account, right? You're trying to have a cold
Possibly.
list of accounts or leads, and you're trying to warm them up using LinkedIn ads or ABM. Is that what it is? It's ideal timeline. So again, a little very broad and generic question here. See, I would say that it really is very dependent on product, and it's very difficult for us to answer what is the ideal timeline. It varies from product to product, market and audience, ICP, everything. But generally, what we've seen is that it needs at least, if you're running ABM at one level. So what I would suggest you to do is pick small set of accounts. Where I've not seen LinkedIn ads work is if you have a large set of accounts. People generally fall into the trap of the reach. They're trying to increase the reach, and they want to say a target only 15 accounts, but LinkedIn is not giving them that reach. Then they add accounts, try and increase the reach, and then kind of dilutes their account list. So pick smaller accounts, but target the entire company. Doesn't matter. That's ABM, right? So get them in front, so at least you're increasing the scope, but you're getting the message in the right account. What generally I've had a pushback is, no, no, we don't target managers, we don't target anybody below that. Why should I target? They don't buy, their users. Doesn't matter. Let it be. The company is seeing the ad, right? Somebody is seeing your ad. Who knows, that person could become your influencer going forward. You don't know. So, and how many CEOs can you target at once? You get to. So I think select those, and then once you have set that up, right, leave it for around 15 days or 20 days. That is when you will see the data kind of coming in. So initially, how you set up the ad is more important than the timeline. If you have set up for 30 accounts and you have set up a low budget, then the timeline will increase because you're just wasting budget there. So I think the strategy of how you set up that account with keeping a product in mind is more important. But ideally, it will take 3 weeks for you to at least see some data coming in and some activation, because LinkedIn takes that much time. So I don't know
Right.
if that answers, but that is what I would have.
Yes, firstly. And I think that's the last set of questions. I mean, we are just almost at the end of this thing, almost close to an hour now, and it's been a wonderful discussion. Actually, I made a lot of notes. Actually, it's like more the nuances which sometimes which you don't see in software or general software to software setting, but in terms of personalization, in terms of using emails, Sales Navigator, add landing pages or multiple other tools in terms of like how you want to optimize. So that's something like using LinkedIn and also using at overall ABM stuff. We learned a lot here.
Yeah.
One last question, which is that like
Sure.
where do you see the ABM trends going? Where do you see like new green shoots, or what do you see happening over the next 24, 25, 26 kind of years?
Oh my God, trends with AI coming in, no, people have stopped predicting any trends. Who would have predicted what would have happened in 2022 November? But see, one thing with ABM is ABM is going to go more mainstream for sure. It is not just something like you said, Fortune 200 companies targeting Fortune 200 companies, enterprise level. It's going to go mainstream. It's also becoming more democratized. It's accessible with tools like Factors and a lot of other tools which have made it possible for startups or smaller mid-sized companies to even think of doing ABM at that scale. So I think that is more and more people will definitely do ABM, because if done right, I think in front of, see, personalization works. There is no doubt about it. Personalization works. Think about it. What is the one word that you want to hear most? Anybody wants to hear? It's your name. If I say Sri, right, that's the name you want to hear most because it's personalized. So think of that personalization exponentially done at that level, because personalization in ABM is something that has always traditionally worked. So how you personalize it is going to be very critical. So I see personalization becoming very, very important. The levels with AI, the level what you can do will be very different. So I think that is one trend. It will become more mainstream. It will be more democratized. I also think that people will. I think video-based content is going to be very more important. UGC content on LinkedIn will be very critical, and I think you can create so that you'll see Instagram like feel to some of those LinkedIn campaigns going on. You're already seeing that with some of these AI ad like Nan.ai. They had a very very good LinkedIn. Earlier, when I started, I only saw static ads. So that is one very good trend. I see that what is working on TikTok and Instagram might also come down. Of course, it won't be as frivolous as some of those ads that go there, but you'll see a lot more personalized content coming in. People talking about themselves, people talking about it. It'll become more informal, or LinkedIn will no longer just become a very professional business tool. It'll become more human. I think that people will create content, and we are seeing that with a lot of agencies also these days. They are the face of the company, or the agencies creating personalized ads where they're talking. So I think it's becoming that sort. And I also feel that uh, uh, and also the most important thing I'd say is that you will see a leaner tech stack, right? ABM earlier was very bloated with a lot of tools. Earlier days, you had now it's been leaner. Maybe people will say, I just want one tool. I have Salesforce or my CRM. I have my marketing automation. Between these two, let us execute ABM. That is what I'm hearing in the market. Or it could be a lean tech stack and a leaner team. That is the other very important change that I'm already seeing. You don't need a very huge, it is not 2 3 10 people executing it. Of course, depends on the size of the company, but lean teams, lean tech stack, and value for the buck is going to be very important. People are now going to ask, justify ABM's value as well. What you're getting. Earlier, it was enough if you had MQAs, marketing qualified accounts, warmed up with ads and all. Now, I think the last trend is ROI. I mean, people, your CFO is going to ask you ROI of ABM. Okay, we got this now. What's happening? So these are some trends, all aspects, cultural, traditional, tech stack. So yeah, you would also have
Absolutely.
a lot of insights, Sri.
No, I mean, I totally agree. One is like we are seeing a more leaner tech stack. There is certain level of consolidation around ABM because there were a lot of micro services or micro features which became product companies, which would one after the zip era actually is like you don't need to have a, something which is special for that, which is there.
Yeah.
Second thing is we are also seeing is a lot more independent orchestration in a sense, like you have intelligence of which accounts are showing intent by bringing in data. You need to orchestrate in different forms.
Yes.
For
Yes.
example, like it's not one single point of orchestration. You don't need just you can run display ads directly from a certain account. You can also run LinkedIn ads. You can also run email campaigns, which is outreach or something. You can also run, let's say, LinkedIn sales messages, which is like there are tools like Dripify, LMG, and so many others which do that as well. So that's one thing is like orchestration becomes important once you have a list of accounts. So the first strategy is to build the list of accounts using multiple signals, whether it can be Play or first party data like what Factors.ai does, or like G2 and so many other things. But orchestrate you need to do differently. So what is happening here is instead of having one tool which will help you both run display ads, emails, everything, you are having individual tools to do it, but you orchestrate based on what is your budget or what you think is the right tool for you, etc. But the
Yeah.
last thing which is also becoming important, as you mentioned, is ROI. ROI is not just in terms of people size and how you want to do thing. ROI is also like companies are willing to invest as long as they're able to see measurable results.
Yes.
And
Yes.
measurement of results become very, very important in a
Yeah.
sense. Where like, can you see I did these activities? Can I concurrently see in real time what is the effect of activities? Marketing is always starts with a hypothesis, right? I have three hypotheses. Let's see what's working. Hypothesis A is not working. B is working very well. C is actually like super duper. So let's invest on what is working, what's not working is basically the whole attribution or measurement or lift analysis, which is there in multiple ways, which is where is driving the whole growth. So that in essence is where the tech is also growing. But the other point which you also mentioned is like how much of this is going to get automated with AI, how much of this is going to get kind of both including personalization and other things can be scaled up exponentially with AI is something which is kind of a anybody's guess. What we have seen over the last 1.5 years in terms of wrappers and in terms of so many AI layers coming is stupendous. So when with GPT-6 and etc., how things can actually change is something as we'll all be looking forward to, and that's something which we'll that's what we have to wait in the market and see what's happening.
Well, with AI, I just have one thing, right?
Hmm.
It's the creator and the user of the AI experience, right? The creator, people who are creating AI based content, it's a whammy for them. It's a bonanza for them because it's become so easy to create the content, and it's exploding, right? I mean, you just mentioned it, right? As I speak, if next month you don't know what's happening. Already people are talking about deep fake as well and all that. But then, as far as user experience is concerned, I as a user, when I experience AI based content, do I feel the same? If I was seeing a more human content or more natural content, is that, or if I were to say, okay, this is AI based content at you, okay, do you would you feel the same? That's something which aesthetically you need to answer that, because creative wise that part, but AI needs to answer that part. Would the user also experience and have the same thing which a user would, creator would? So that's something which is a bit of a double-edged sword, but I see where you're coming from. It's just scary what is happening there, and it's very good though.
Very good. I mean, see, one thing which I've seen is like the Solos model, right? Any new technology eventually leads to more productivity and
Yeah.
advances growth. So it
Yeah.
actually leads people to be far more creative and far more kind of useful in multiple ways. So actually, it's good news in a overall way. So let's see how. And we tend to get scared of technology first before
Yeah.
kind of figuring out like how much it can actually be a scale or a multiplier in a same sense. So that's it. And that's it. We are at 59th minute now. Thanks a lot, Keaton. This was hugely useful. Uh, I personally see making multiple shots, YouTube shots out of it. I was parallelly even messaging some of my this thing like this is very good insights which we can actually take it up into a blog or even multiple series around this. So thanks a lot for this level of insights and also the depth in which we went in. For everyone here, Ketan can be contacted over LinkedIn. He's a CMO at Fielder. LinkedIn DMs would work to reach out to him. So please reach out to him. And also, he is also a member of multiple WhatsApp groups and also communities as well. So he shares his insights multiple in other places as well. So you can also connect with him in multiple places. That's all. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Shri. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed this session. I think it was a good discussion as well. You know, always good to talk to you, and always a learning experience. Get to learn a lot of things. So, thank you for having me, and I hope the audience were able to go away with some stuff that they could apply.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. I'll just be closing the stream and we are at 6 p.m. now.